off, how did you get the role? How were you approached to take on the lead in this movie?
Well, we're going back. I actually had to tell one of the fans to stop by my table. 1981 was when this movie was released. And really, from the time I got the job to the time it was released was really a very short time in movie times. I met John Landis, who wrote and directed it. I should tell you that John, if you hadn't heard this before, John wrote this screenplay really when he was about 20 years old, 21. He was working on a film as a production assistant in Europe, and he got the idea. It was Kelly's Hero, the name of the film he was working on. And as a production assistant, being a kid with his first role, where you do everything as a production assistant. But that's where he was sort of exposed to the notion of werewolves happening in Hungary and Eastern Europe where they were shooting. So he wrote the screenplay, which he did not get a chance to do, of course, until after the success of Animal House and Blues Brothers. So when I met him, it was on the lot at Universal. It was an opportunity. He was seeing lots of different guys for, really he needed the two boys, as he called them. He needed those two guys right away because he was waiting to tell Rick Baker that he could have us to go into the preliminary makeup. Rick needed the guys as quickly as we could. So even before John, as he tells the story now, even had financing completely locked up, he was still meeting with guys looking for the two roles of Jack and David. So I had a chance to meet him, and it was as green, light a project as it could be, even though I wasn't aware that there wasn't really financing in place. Got a chance to meet him, sat down, talked. He was extremely, if you've ever seen John in person, he's a really highly animated, very funny guy. It's a very relaxed interview. And he gave me the script. He said, read the script. I told him that I'd studied acting in London. I'd been all around Great Britain. He'd asked me if I'd ever been on the moors. I go, no, why? So I got a chance to read the script, and it was, pretty amazing. And what you saw is really what we shot. That's how it reads. And he called me the next day and said, well, you want to be a werewolf? I mean, that's how easy it was as far as the process. I've been through so many more difficult kinds of processes to get the job. This was one, sat down, we had a long chat, and the next day I was off to Rick Baker's shop in San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. And then I started to realize what I was in for.
And that's a good lead-in because, of course, what we all remember American Werewolf in London for is the amazing special effects by Rick Baker. They were really groundbreaking at the time. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about what that process was like? Was it horrible? Was it painful?
Yeah, it was all that. Well, Rick was this guy that John said, you got to go meet Rick. Who's Rick? I figured he was the guy. I was meeting John Landis. He was the writer, director. Who else was there to meet? He says, we got to meet Rick. He's doing the effects. And he says, so he's really going to put you through, some paces. So, a couple of days later, after initially meeting John, I went over to this shop. I mean, this was not, if you could see Rick Baker's shop now, it's like, it's a factory of special effects. I think he's won 6 Academy Awards. This was the first. And so nobody really knew who he was. He and John had worked together on small little projects. So I literally went over to like a rented space and went into this just like a warehouse, small rented space with all these guys that were, goofed up and went, are you David? I said, yeah. And Rick came out and said, what are you playing? I said, I'm playing the role of David. He goes, well, I feel sorry for you. And that was, immediately was like, what do you mean you feel sorry? What are you talking about? Well, I found out. Right, we began to do the process of making molds. The first were my arms, having my arms done. I don't know if I'm sure people know about these processes now. At the time, it was completely like, you want me to do what? Stick my head in this? These were vats of, quick drying cement. Initially, I had to do my arms, and then I had to do legs. And then, it came time to do heads and different expressions, which they were trying to make molds of. And it was really a claustrophobic, quick drawing cement as it's going on your head and eyes, and you can only just breathe, through your nose. And I said, have you guys done this before? Yeah, once. Okay, let's try it. And so